right there.
Yes. I'm actually furious. He left out loads of awards. I've got... One of the annoying things about technology is you can't go onto Wikipedia and change your own entry because they sort of send it back going, this seems to be completely unethical that you're writing your own Wikipedia entry. So the last 3 years' worth of achievements have been completely left out, including the fact that last week I managed to break my own record and fitted 47 grapes in my own mouth. And I have pictorial evidence for that. But Wikipedia, again, they're like, no, that's too much.
TMI, even for Wikipedia,
Exactly.
is saying something. Wow.
Screw you, Wikipedia.
Amazing. Well, you've got your own Wikipedia entry. I still aspire to that. So that's good. So welcome to Engage. Caitlin, really, really appreciate you coming down here with your long list of achievements. It's a massive honour to have you.
My absolute pleasure. I was in the building from last time I was at the Barbican. You just get lost here. So I've just been wandering around since I saw Hamlet about 6 months ago. So it all worked out quite well.
You're still looking for Benedict, are
you?
Yeah.
Where are you? Well, I went to his dressing room, obviously.
That's where you've been sleeping?
Yes.
Yeah, nice. So I was doing a bit of research on you, hopefully not too stalkerish amount of research on you. So I actually know all the awards that John's missed out. As to give you a bit of context, I guess, about today, we have a big, event. We've got one tomorrow the day as well, and we like to have at the end of the day someone who kind of makes us think of it differently. So we've heard from lots of industry insiders, and we can be in a bit of a bubble. So, that's hopefully what you're here to bring, a bit of width and stuff. But it occurred to me as I did my research, you're actually sort of a bit of one of us.
Yes.
In a weird way. I look around, take that as a compliment. If you will, you won't.
I'm happy to be part of any gang. I was a very lonely child. I work from home. If anybody wants to put their arm around me and say, let's go for a drink, I'm always like, yes, that sounds absolutely delightful.
Well, you're one of us. So, thank you again. And as a journalist for The Times, as a big social media person, you are kind of part of the internet digital thing.
Oh, well, it was funny because I was listening to the previous talk and just thinking, like, what do I want to say about the internet? And I was just thinking loads of stuff. I got a notification on Twitter yesterday telling me it was my seventh Twitter birthday. It's 7 years since I signed up to Twitter. And I was thinking how much things have changed on social media since I started. Like, I feel like doing a kind of dissolvey screen wobbly wobble back in the day thing. But when I first started out on Twitter, it was a bit like the beginning of the opening ceremony at the Olympics. It was all just these beautiful fields and people in lovely hats and sort of sheep gambolling everywhere. It was incredibly pleasant. And it was mainly ruled by women. There was just a load of women on there. They'd found this space that for the first time men hadn't come into. And we all just used to sit there just being very silly. And it was this kind of international community of silliness. Like I can remember one day I was just very bored on my computer and I went, wouldn't it be great if we all just went for a day trip to France to buy cheese? Let's go for an imaginary day out. And within 20 minutes, I had Martina Navratilova and Maggie Philbin from Tomorrow's World going, yes, we're going to come with you. And we spent all day having this imaginary day out. Sort of Maggie Philbin would type, oh, I'm getting on the ferry now. And then Martina Navratilova was like, I'm going to the cafe. And then Maggie Philbin went, oh, I've got a bit drunk and fallen off the ferry. That was what social media used to be like, sort of 7 years ago. And then it was in 2012 that the first troll attack happened, and suddenly the tone changed. There was this, it was the first time, by the end of that summer, I didn't know a single woman who hadn't had multiple death and rape threats. It became suddenly very violent, very unpleasant. I think there was a load of boys from 4chan came and sort of swarmed onto Twitter for the first time. There's this huge wave of publicity about there are trolls on Twitter. Nothing really happened about that. So one of the biggest perverse PR campaigns in history was go to Twitter and threaten to kill people. That's what Twitter's for. And that set the tone on social media. And I was thinking about what politics was like 7 years ago. I write about politics all the time, and we used to sit around and me and all the sort of political correspondents going, politics is so boring, the middle ground has been claimed by everyone, there's political apathy, no one cares about politics, no one's talking about anything new. It would be amazing if there was some kind of sense of radicalism or change, or when you saw new faces and people were talking about different things, and there was some sense of debate and and difference of opinion. And obviously now, that's what we've got. And I can't help in the worst possible way. And if I look at the way that the political debate, the big political things that have happened in the last couple of years, when you look at Brexit, the rise of Trump, the takeover of the Labour Party by Momentum, this kind of fracturing of debate, it all seems to have been mirrored by what's happened on social media. That's where we meet these days. It's particularly in the Western Hemisphere, in northern countries. We're rainy countries. We don't go out to the pub. We don't sit in the village square. We gather on social media. That's our pub. That's where we talk. And that sets the tone and conversation. And after the first troll attack, You know, before then it was like, we're all together, we can talk, this is amazing, what an incredible gift we've been given. People, for the first time, can talk to each other unmediated around the world. Finally, we'll get to hear what the global conversation is like. And the global conversation at first was very playful, very silly. The first troll attack happened and suddenly it changed. When people started getting attacked, it was like, okay, what's going to happen? And people started to shut down again and silo. And if you look at what's happened in the last 4 or 5 years on social media, we've gone from, I'm talking to everybody, to, no, I live in this group, I've got my protections on, I live here, we all now live in echo chambers again. We've gone from this infinite possibility of being able to communicate with anyone to, if you look at who generally your social group is now, it's very small, it's very locked down. And as a consequence, we don't hear differences of opinion in a way that was much more common 7 years ago, which is absolutely mirrored and echoed in what's happening politically and in the way that we debate now. And similarly, the tone of debate politically is absolutely set by social media and online. It's got this kind of weird, we forget, the tone of conversation can change so quickly in the rules of conversation. There's a weird kind of gaming element now to the way that people talk about politics. This whole thing about, I won the internet. You know, conversation previously was much more give and take. We'll talk about compromise. We would all meet in the middle ground. Now, it's radical and it's extreme. It's like, I must win this thing. You are my enemies. I'm going to go in there and smash there. Who can we get on our side? Who can we get on our side? It's, you know, it's turned into Game of Thrones. It's being gamed. And that is absolutely influenced. And I think we forget very quickly, if you go back and see how people were talking 7 years ago compared to now, I can absolutely see the way that we talk has completely changed because of social media. And of course, at the moment, it looks like it's going to lead to the apocalypse. And, you know, I'm busily Googling ticket to Mars if Trump wins. But we have to remember that social media and, you know, the internet is still an absolutely incredible idea, and we're still at the very, very beginning of it. In the last book that I wrote, I was likening sort of social media and this idea of people being able to communicate with each other. Like, you know, if the world is finally able to communicate with itself, we see the world in space. And as you see these kind of lines of communication lighting up and people being able to sort of connect all across the world, it lights up thousands of golden skeins and it looks like a human brain finally kind of connecting up and neurons firing. Finally, we're all talking to each other. So that is what the world is basically with social media. It's the starting of the entire planet being sentient and working as a whole. But of course, that brain is in its infancy. We've only just started to talk to each other. We've only just started to get wired up. And the internet and the world, you know, social media behaves like a newborn baby. You know, it is prone to insane rages. You know, it will scream at people. You know, it doesn't like people it doesn't know. It will cling to people it absolutely loves. And it can always be soothed by talk about what it can have for lunch or a picture of a funny cat. So that's what social media is now. And so, you know, I don't lose hope because I'm like, okay, well, this is a baby now. It's going through its raging, angry, unreasonable, biting you on the face phase. And gradually, as the years go by, it will grow. We'll go through our toddler phase. You know, social media will go through its adolescence and finally it will turn into a grown-up. And it can, once again, be what we thought it was at the beginning. You know, a new hope, a new way of talking to each other. But absolutely essential to that is looking at how the medium is the message. You know, what the spaces that you provide, what kind of conversations they then encourage or facilitate. And something like Twitter, to me, seems so obviously male and combative. The way that you watch it, it's like bullets going into your head. If you follow someone, you can't not see everything they say. And so you get that flight or fight response every time they say something. And this makes people constantly adrenalized. And again, there was a study saying that when you're online, your inhibitions are to the point where it's like you've had 3 pints. So once you understand that when you're online, you're basically in a pub at 10 o'clock on a Friday, and everyone's a bit drunk and spoiling for a fight, and also a bit horny, suddenly 90% of the internet is explained. So at some point, we'll sober up and we'll grow up, and the internet will be what we thought it was at the beginning. But at the moment, it's a terrifying baby that is clearly leading to the absolute downgrading and gamification of the most important conversations we could be having at the moment.
A drunken baby.
And that was my first sentence.
This is easy. You're the best interviewee ever.
My pleasure.
And I think it's fascinating. So we've got a drunken baby stage, which sounds great. I think brilliant. You obviously, you use social, you know, hugely as an individual. You've got sort of 500,000 followers or something like that. So massive on Twitter, and obviously use it to interact with Martina Navratilova, which is awesome.
Yes,
as a kind of person, but also, you know, plenty of years and experience as a journalist, and seeing and having been a journalist over the kind of growth of the internet. How has social on the internet and stuff changed the way you write stuff and find information out and all that kind of jazz?
Well, it's weird. I'm going on a journey with it because at the beginning it seemed to make things so much easier because I would use Twitter is basically where I live. In my bio and on my books, it just says Caitlin Moran lives on Twitter. Like that's essentially where I live, which is why I feel entitled to be able to slag it off so much because I love it so much and that's where I live. And at the beginning, it seemed great because I follow I think 2,000 people and across a very wide variety of things, and I would basically use it like a news feed. So if someone's tweeting a news article, it's like, well, these it's like having it curated for you. It's like having a sommelier kind of like bringing all the news that I wanted to know, most of which was about Kim Kardashian or Benedict Cumberbatch's face, but there was some stuff about news as well. And but recently I've started to realise again, you start realising, I think it takes a while to realise that kind of you're not getting everything on social media. You think, I'm just turn it on and there's the whole world. And of course it's not, it's your very tiny corner. So now, but once you realise that, then you can then go out and address it and start following kind of like different Twitter feeds and making sure that you read different media. But I could list names if I'd had 2 drinks and wanted to get into trouble, but I can see the journalists that are have very narrow Twitter feeds and only write off the back of that.
So you're kind of careful about it, actually. You're careful not to get sucked into it.
Well, you have to do an audit. You have to, if you could have it as a visual and it could just show you every sort of news feed and person you're following, and it could like sort of file them by ethnicity. At the point where you're following 97% white people, that should be an alarm. If you're following like 97% men, that should be an alarm. Kind of it's mainly Western news, that should be an alarm. You need to make sure that you are actually seeing the world rather than really the people that you would meet down in Soho House in 3 hours' time. And that's, you're not seeing the world there at all.
You're going to curate yourself, create your friends a bit.
Yes.
Yeah, nice, I like it. And I think the internet has changed a bit.
Vodka.
I was going to say.
Who did that?
You swapped my bottles, clearly. So the internet's changed, I think, quite a lot, not just in terms of like proper, serious journalism, but also the kind of internet of celebrity, which is something you write your celebrity column every week, which I read.
Thank you.
And we were just talking just before we came on stage about Kim Kardashian and Hill Swift and all that kind of stuff. What with your expertise in celebrity and kind of celebrity culture, what's the internet playing in all that? Is it making things nuts? Is it like bringing stories are they planting? Is Hill Swift real?
Well, I hope it's real because we're at the point where Tom Hiddleston was wearing a T-shirt that said, I love TS.
Is that real?
Everyone presumed that stood for Taylor Swift, but I hope it stood for T.S. Eliot, and this was just some big kind of like, that's what I'm doing. Well, the interesting thing about another thing that's really powered, again, particularly Twitter and celebrity, sort of reality TV stars on Twitter, is that do you remember when was it about 10 years ago now that we found out that hacking into celebrities' phones was illegal? Kind of, as a journalist, most of us didn't know, but it turns out that was actually a wrong thing to do, and sort of no one does that anymore now. But what used to previously happen was celebrity journalists would simply go and steal people's lives and information and secrets, and then it would be huge exclusives in the newspapers. And then when it became financially unviable to do that because of the gigantic legal fees and fines, there had to be another way to fill gossip magazines and tabloid newspapers. And this was where there was a symbiotic rise in social media, because any celebrity who put content out on Twitter was guaranteed massive space because they had to fill those pages with something. And if you look now at most tabloids and most gossip magazines, between 60 and 90% of the stories they have on there is something that a celebrity themselves has put on Twitter. It'll be like kind of, here they are having lunch, or, here's Kim Kardashian showing her tits again, which, you might as well have on a macro on your keyboard. But and so that they are for the first time selling news. So that and this is one of the reasons why I'm pro Kim Kardashian, because she's the first female celebrity who has had agency over her life and has simply sold what information she wants to be given out there, rather than having it stolen from her or taken from her. Obviously, sort of this last week's been a bit tricky for her, but generally, by and large, it's a business model. No one's done that before. And I also have a massive fondness for reality stars as well, because I can remember about 20 years ago, you'd be interviewing kind of, Bono from U2 or Chris Martin from Coldplay, and they'd be talking about how awful it was being followed by paparazzi, and why, if you wanted to just write songs, why did you have to have this thing where you were, you had no personal life and you were followed everywhere? And it was around that time that things like Big Brother started and the big reality TV shows started, and these were basically people who volunteered for just the fame bit. They don't do anything else. They don't make anything else. They don't write albums or design clothes or kind of write beautiful books or stuff. They're just literally volunteering to wear dresses on red carpets and wave. And I thought that was a really brilliant and beautiful and spontaneous invention of humankind, that we were simply people who like to wave were allowed to go here and be in all the magazines, while sort of, creative artists could just go off and do lovely things and write us beautiful albums and not be harassed. So it's always interesting seeing kind of like sort of just the business of celebrity changing and these different business models coming along, but no one noticing them or writing about them, because everybody thinks celebrity culture is ephemeral. But celebrity news and celebrity culture drives our news agenda. It's responsible for so much of how we see ourselves, and how, celebrities are our Greek gods. They're our myths. This is how we understand who we are. This is how we raise subjects. So, it's worth sitting there for 5 minutes and going, actually, this is quite interesting. And also, I like Kim Kardashian. I thought I would hate her. I'm a feminist, but I watched her program because my kid likes it. And it's a huge family of women growing massive bums like they're bum farmers. And constantly having to pluck their monobrows. That was my childhood. I mean, just with less diamonds. I'm totally down with them.
Bum farming and plucking eyebrows. I'm going to open up to the floor. I think we're only going to have time for one question, but I want to give you a little...
I'm only on my second sentence.
I know. I feel like we could do this forever. So think, I will come back to you if you're looking scared. You've got some time to think about it, because you just mentioned one thing which I really feel like we should talk about a bit more, seeing as the tech industry is not best known for its women and that kind of thing. And, it's something that we struggle with, and we're, I think, making an effort to do more as an industry to get more diversity in all sorts of ways, but particularly in terms of getting young girls into the industry and getting into senior positions, which is something, again, that we, like many other industries, struggle with. So, we've got lots of really senior tech people in this room, and I'm sure you've got lots of advice for us.
Absolutely.
What should we do?
Well, first of all, if you look at the stats on coding, it's still crackers, isn't it? It's something like, it's in the 90s that it's men. It's 90-something% that it's men and less women. And in terms of women and the future, I mean, obviously I speak for the women's team, but, in terms of ladies, that's like if we knew that in 10 years' time the global language was going to be Chinese and women weren't learning Chinese. If we are not coding, the future is tech, the future is coding, this is how we build the world, this is how we understand ourselves. As what I was saying before, your life is down to apps now. This is, we increasingly define ourselves. Our possibilities are limited by and defined by the tech that we have in our hand. And if it's only being programmed by men, then women are going to be second-class citizens. The way that we look at the world is not going to be represented. And that's one of the problems that I have with the phrase, which is always used with the best one in the world, and I use it myself. But when people talk about more diversity in any sector, you can't think of it in terms of more diversity. You have to think of it in terms of more business. There are simply things that women and people of colour and people from different sexualities and different religions will come up that, straight white Christian guys will not come up with. It's not a factor of just being good and noble and kind of going, we could have 3 people and then that'll just make the room look more colourful. It's like, you will make more business. You will make a bigger world. This will increase. There are so many things that I know that I would use that have not been invented yet, that men will never invent, but women would invent because they would understand my life. And this is sort of going back to what I was talking about with Twitter earlier, like kind of, I still think it's one of the defining inventions of our age, but it's so obviously invented by men, and men rule there. It's so obviously a thing that was created by extroverts, by men, by people who are used to shouting the last, you talk in a blah way. There's no way to have a debate there. There's no way to sort of sit back and have a conversation. You can't make a compromise on Twitter. There's just not enough space for these things. The first time that we come up with a social media space that's fast and rapid, but which has been invented by a woman, will be an incredible thing. I see so many politicians talking to each other on Twitter, and they just have to go, agree to disagree. They're kind of like, no, you should be doing this. This is brilliance. This is democracy. This is people being able to understand how politics work. Give them the space. Why can't you have a breakout button? And everyone can go into a big room like this, a virtual room like this, where you can carry on having that conversation. And people can start pulling down graphs and slides, and you can start bringing things in. You could go, I'm summoning someone else to the room. You can bring someone else in and continue having this conversation for 2 or 3 days. So we finally actually get to start working through ideas, rather than just having a massive cockfight on stage and then just everybody huffing off, which is what happens at the moment. I mean, sometimes those are good. I like a cockfight, but like kind of that can't be 90% of the way that we do business in the 21st century.
It's brilliant. Is anyone in the room got a question? If you do, put your hand up and I will look out for you.
Don't worry if you haven't, because I've got a long anecdote about Tom Hardy and how I terrified him on Twitter, and I can just simply launch into that instead.
Is everyone we've got one over here. Anna, can you see right on the end Here, there's someone closer, coming, running with a microphone.
First of all, I've been a massive fan for years, so it's really cool to be able to sit here and of both of you, Alex as well, obviously.
Thank you.
But particularly, is it Caitlin or Catlin?
It's Catlin, but it shouldn't be. I picked it out of a Gilly Cooper novel when I was 13, and I pronounced it incorrectly. I'm an idiot.
Fair enough.
I don't even know my own name. This is the level. You shouldn't be listening to me. I'm a fool.
So very much linked to the previous question, in media, as a woman having worked in media for a while, there's still a bit of a culture of a bit of the old boys club, all go down for drinks on a Friday, and perhaps certain, shall we say, less savoury practices in the boardroom and the like. How do we change those sort of softer cultural sides of things within media so it's not all sexual harassment jokes and the like?
I couldn't hear everything you said, but you were saying basically how do we change that kind of sort of very male Friday night down a strip club kind of strip culture?
Yeah, exactly that.
Oh
And
my God, well I just think we need to get them,
jokes.
I mean the only way you can stop that is getting their mums involved. Like kind of, you just need to
Tell them off.
Genuinely kind of the sort of 40-year-old CEOs who are going down to strip clubs, their mums are going to be in their 60s. They were there for those first marches, for the feminists and stuff. We just, if I worked for a feminist activist group, I'd be contacting all of these guys' mums and going, you just need to go down the office on Friday night and stand there going, I don't think so. Or stand there with your handbag just going, so where are you going? Oh, that's lovely. I'll come with you. And then at the point where you have to take your mum down to a strip club and to show her what you were planning to do on a Friday night, I think that will probably not happen again. So it's got to be get the mums involved.
Easily done. I'm just imagining my IAB team making
or
that
daughters,
happen.
they will have 9 or 10-year-old daughters. If I had my way, I'd be making a sort of an Artful Dodger kind of Oliver collective of kind of 13 and 14-year-old daughters of male CEOs in this country, and I'd be emailing them going, okay, activate. On Friday, you turn up at the office and go, Daddy, where are you going? Can I come with you? He's not going to go to that strip club. That would be the end of that. Come on, ladies, get the mums, get the granddaughters. Let's do this.
Oh gosh, I've got such images. Okay, I've actually gotten out of time, but I'm just going to check if there's one more question in the audience. Oh, now I've said I'm out of time, everyone's too shy. No?
Well, then I can end by telling you what you must not do if you see Tom Hardy, one of the sexiest actors who's ever lived, and your personal heartthrob suddenly pop up on Twitter with a new Twitter account where he's talking about a dog's rescue home in his local area and showing all the dogs that he loves and stuff, and just kind of, that's obviously what he's doing. He doesn't want to talk to people personally. He's just helping this local dog's home because he's a noble and handsome and sexually attractive man. What you must not do is every time he posts something, go, hi, Tom Hardy, it's me, Kat Moran. I think you're very exciting and beautiful. And then he ignores you. And then next time he does it with the dog, you just do it again. Just going, you really are very beautiful. You know the way you're touching that dog? I'd like you to touch me like that. And for that to continue for 2 weeks until he just dislocates his account and leaves Twitter forever. And you know that you have personally done that by harassing him. So don't do that. That would be my main piece of advice for you to take home tonight. So Leave Tom Hardy alone.
You trolled
ladies.
him?
Yeah. But it was a sex troll.
Trolled him.
Sex troll. That's what I've invented.
Specific kind of trolling.
Yes.
Celebrity
Just
sex
love trolling. It's just a bit too much.
Well, we are sadly out of time.
Yeah, he really wants us to get off stage.
Right?
Sorry, mate.
Yeah,
Sorry.
He's giving me
Drink. Yes, good idea.
Yeah. You're very welcome to stay for a drink, and thank you so much again to coming down and talking to us about all this exciting stuff and being so honest and brilliant as normal. It's
My
a huge
absolute
honour.
pleasure.
So
Thank you so much.
Thank you.